Call this meeting to order. Welcome, Council. And at this time, I'd like to give the opening to Councillor Jake Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all know, Steinbach was settled in 1874 by 18 families recently immigrated from Russia. From those beginnings, Steinbachs grew beyond what they first expected. By 1920, the little village of 700 people took its first step to become independent by moving to an unincorporated village district status within the arm of Hanover. By 1946, they boasted of having 1,798 residents and became the town of Steinbach. Interestingly enough, the first application to become a town was in 1941. The province of Manitoba agreed with the application, but told town officials to wait until after World War II. In 1946, the assessment was at just over $700,000, and the town's first budget was $46,052. For much of Steinbach's first decade as a town, its municipal offices had to make do with rented accommodations. The first meetings were held in the basement of the new Steinbach Credit Union building, which today is part of Hull's bookstore on Hanover Avenue. In January 1954, the town purchased the former post office from the federal government for $2,500 and converted it for its own use. This building no longer exists, but was located where the current TD Bank is located on the corner of Main and Hanover Avenue. The town soon found this building too small for its needs. In May of 1965, it was decided to hold a referendum on building a new civic center. There was one condition, however, and that was that Steinbach business community needed to give its approval. The chamber held a secret vote and gave its blessing. With that approval, it went to a referendum which passed with 289 people voting in favor and 121 opposed. The new town hall would bring together the council chambers, administrative offices, courthouse, and police station under one roof. Architect Norman Earl Reimer was hired to come up with a design for the new building. Norman Reimer was a Steinbach native, son of J.J. Reimer. Norman graduated from the U of M's architecture school in 1949 and practiced in Edmonton and London, England, before returning to Winnipeg in 1956. There are dozens of examples of his work stretching from northwest Ontario to Saskatchewan. Looking through the notes and archives of the Manitoba Architectural Society, there was a comment in there by Mayor L.A. Barkman, who was also our MLA at the time. He noted that the new building should not be of the latest design, that the municipal and provincial buildings were styled in the 1950s and 60s, and that was the brutalist style building. This building had to be unique to Steinbach. So then I had to Google that. What is a brutalist design building? And they are buildings that are characterized by their massive, monolithic, and blocky appearance with a rigid geometric style and large-scale use of poured concrete that is characterized by its rough, unfinished surfaces, heavy-looking material, straight lines, and small windows. I could not find an example of that in Steinbach, but Winnipeg has many, including the former safety building, the Winnipeg Taxation Center just off of Regent, and the University of Manitoba Student Union building. The notes went on to say, the angular lines of Steinbach's town hall are a trait of Reimer's and can be seen in varying degrees on several of his buildings, including the former Kinsman Center for the Handicapped in Winnipeg, the Westgate building at Birds Hill Provincial Park, and the Mennonite Heritage Museum building in Steinbach. Reimer said of his design, which resembles a compass from above, the council chamber, representing the center of local government, is a predominant feature. The flowing roof represents the compass of authority emanating from the central council chambers. Ratepayers voted in favor of constructing Reimer's Town Hall on June 23, 1965. Total cost of the project was budgeted at $192,000, though the town would only have to borrow $128,000 of that. Even then, they were very diligent with their budget dollars. A sod turning ceremony took place on September 21st, 1965, and then it goes on to state, minutes later, C.T. Lowen and Son, the general contractor, began digging the building's foundation. The reason for the rush was that the project had to be completed by March 31st, 1966 to qualify for the 25% rebate from a provincial infrastructure program. The building was officially opened on September 27th, 1966, when Mayor Ellie Barkman cut the ribbon in front of a large crowd that included many elected officials from all three levels of government and the Lieutenant Governor, Richard S. Bowles. Despite the later than expected opening date, Steinbach still received its $32,000 infrastructure program rebate. In 1966, Steinbach had a population of 3,740 people. Assessment was just over $7 million, and it had a budget of $740,000. The new Civic Center building opened and included various other organizations. Steinbach Police Department was in the building as it had a two-car garage built into the basement. The RCMP located in this building for a number of months when they first took over in 1975. Other organizations that rented space in this building over the years included the Hanover School Division, Farm Credit, Natural Resources, Chamber of Commerce, Manitoba Highways Department, Assessment Branch, and the Provincial Court and Magistrates' offices. By 1985, the new provincial building had been built on Main Street, and these organizations all began moving out as they outgrew their current spaces here. Up until the late 1980s, town office took up one half of one wing. The other half of that wing was the magistrates' offices. The courtroom was across the hall from council chambers, and Manitoba Highways took up one whole wing downstairs, and the other wing in the basement was used by Natural Resources and the policing. The upstairs on the north side had the mayor's office along with many smaller offices for assessment branch and chamber and so on, and that is today's mayor's office. Our current council chambers had one update, and that was in 1992, and the comment was to get rid of the bright orange curtained walls. And I tried, but I could not find a picture. The size and layout remain much the same, and we continue to have discussions that we need another renovation. In 2002, a 2,000 square foot addition was made on the south side and at the cost of just over $400,000. And in 2017, a 3,500 square foot addition was made on the north side for $1.4 million. These expansions were needed to accommodate the engineering, planning, and other departments as they moved from the old Public Works building on Brant. Today, the Civic Center is assessed at $3.3 million and has been home to city administration and council for the past 56 years. In my opinion, the building continues to demonstrate the intended vision architect Norman Reimer had for this building and is still a unique showpiece that Steinbach can be proud of. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Siemens. Council, we have the agenda in front of us. Looking for a motion to adopt. Councillor Hebert, second by Councillor Hebert. Any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, we have the minutes of February 15th, 2022, the regular council meeting. They start on page 1. We've all had a chance to review. Looking for a motion to approve. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Any comments?
No comments.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Council, is there any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. We move on. It is just a little past 7:35, so we'll go directly into the public hearing. We've got 6A. This is Variance V-2022-01. This is referring to Hanover West. Starts on page 6 of our package. At this time, we will close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Workman, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this application for variance file V-2022-01 for a property located on Hanover Road West in Steinbach is being applied for in connection with the owner of the property being ACTS, Aviation Computer Technology Systems Ltd., with the applicant for the variance being Lisa Alderson of Centra Gas. Purpose of the variance is twofold. Firstly, to allow a property within the DR1 Development Reserve 1 zone to have an overall site area of 0.72 acres, whereas the DR1 zone requires a minimum of 20 acres. And secondly, to allow an overall site width of 213.25 feet, whereas the DR1 zone requires an overall site width minimum of 600 feet. The applicant is proposing to subdivide a small piece of land off of the larger holding to allow for the construction of a Centra Gas regulation station. just west of PTH 12. With respect to the application, the general needs of the city and of the area are currently in the view of Centra Gas outstripping the capacity of supply. Therefore, with the addition of the gas supply lines and the regulator station, this is future planning being undertaken by Centra Gas. The applicant will not be appearing. However, they have submitted an item of correspondence, a copy of which has been provided to councillors. Recommendation is that council approve the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Wartine. Okay, so the applicant is not present. So we'll go ask if there's any comments, questions, or objections to this file. Okay, seeing none, I'll ask one more time. Is there any questions, comments, or objections to this file? Okay, at this time, we will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Hebert?
Motion to approve.
Second by Councillor Schweitzer. Go ahead, Councillor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we have here is an application by Centra Gas to purchase 3/4 acre of land from an area that we refer to as Harv's Air. As we note, this is a piece of land that won't have any buildings on it per se, so therefore won't require infrastructure such as sewer and water. Steinbach is the largest city in Manitoba, which presently does not have a secondary gas supply and consequently is identified as a community vulnerable to widespread outage of several days or more if gas supply is interrupted from this pipeline. This is part of the memo that we received here. So it is a good infrastructure for Steinbach to have this gas placed there, and so therefore I think it's appropriate for council to agree and move it.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Schweitzer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree that it makes sense to approve this variance. Centra Gas is looking to build a secondary source of natural gas, so that way we have another pipeline that is available, and this will obviously help with our long-term growth as a city. The policy that we have in place regarding the development reserve is to prevent land fragmentation, because we obviously want land designated as development reserve to be developed in an orderly fashion. But in this case here, this is obviously a unique situation. Centra Gas only requires the small portion of land. This is for the purpose of a utility, so it makes sense to allow for an exception in this case and to approve the variance.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We'll move to 6B. This is Variance V-2022-02. This is referring to 224 Woodhaven Avenue. At this time, I will close the public meeting, or close the council meeting, open the public hearing. Mr. Wartney, could you please introduce this file?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this application for variance file V-2022-02 for 224 Reimer Avenue is being applied for by Steinbach Community Outreach, Inc., who is also the owner of the subject property. Purpose of the variance application is the proposed development of a 24-unit multifamily building comprised entirely of bachelor and one-bedroom units, and is requesting that the project be able to develop a total of 30 parking stalls, whereas City of Steinbach zoning bylaw 2100 requires a minimum of 40 parking stalls for the number of units being proposed. Notices pursuant to the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on file. With respect to the proposed project, Woodhaven Avenue west of East Breck Street is a recently constructed street that is intended to carry significant volumes of traffic. The general land use of the area on the north side of the roadway is all medium density and high density multifamily zoning, and there have been several multifamily units and projects started to date. Because of the particular configuration of the street, there is no on-street parking permitted on that particular section of Woodhaven Avenue. And with the existing zoning of properties along that stretch, there is the potential for a significant number of residential units being able to be built in that area, and therefore putting pressure on the area to have sufficient capacity to meet the needs of traffic. Therefore, the recommendation from administration is that all on-site parking requirements be configured according to City of Steinbach zoning requirements on the lot, and the recommendation is that the actual parking stalls request to be reduced be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Orgtine. Is the applicant here today and would like to speak? Okay. Take the podium. Please state your name and your address, and then continue.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Chairman, and Council members. My name is Irene Cricker. I'm from 16 Chaddington Bay in Steinbach, and we are from Steinbach Community Outreach, which is at 345 Lowen Boulevard. I'm the Executive Director. I'm pleased to see some familiar faces in front of me, as some of us have crossed paths over the last 15 years, and we have been in operation. And all of us at SEO would sincerely like to thank you for supporting our affordable housing project. And we want to publicly say a special thank you from myself and from our frontline workers for the supportive comments that you made that you gave to us when you approved our submission. So we have come a long way in the last 15 years, and we are ready to place our energies now into this project. In 2007, we were helping 20 individuals out of our small corner of our church, and today we are helping 765 individuals per year, and that keeps us very busy. We are grateful to our 65 volunteers who help us do all the work, along with one full-time paid office administrator and 2 half-time employees managing the drop-in center. Currently, we also have 4 unique programs that we are running: a counseling program funded through grants, offering free counseling for our clients that need it, a free income tax clinic for those with incomes less than $35,000, a drop-in center that supplies basic needs and a safe place to gather, and what brings us here today, our housing support program that we call Client Aid. Affordable housing is a need in Steinbach that goes way beyond the 24 units we are asking for. However, it is a start. Mostly, probably all, of the households that we connect with monthly struggle with housing. Some of them because their living conditions are difficult, and others because of emergencies such as COVID or health issues, disabilities, or those things in life that bring them to a point of a reduction of income. For example, one of our former clients, a single mom, now a valued volunteer, raised her daughter in a basement suite that has no heat other than the heaters she plugs in and the heat from the open oven door warming up her kitchen. Her windows have rolled towels covering them and blackout curtains in an attempt to keep out the cold. However, she does an amazing job, and now her daughter is graduating from the SRSS and on to university the next year. We are so proud of her. She is one example of the kind of tenant that is on our priority list of potential tenants for this new space. She will be one of the first tenants we offer a place to this building. We have a list of potential tenants who are people that we are very familiar with. These are people that struggle financially and cannot afford the amenities of life that we are used to. Having said that, I confess when we saw the plans for the bridge, those of us that know our clients chuckled at the number of parking spots available for them. Not only can they not afford the basic necessities, there is no way they can purchase a vehicle, pay the monthly registration fees, driver's licenses, maintenance, gas, and upkeep of the car. We look at our list of people who have expressed interest in renting in our building, and out of 14 people, there are only 4 with cars or vehicles, and these vehicles are usually given to them by friends and families that are known to them. That leaves a lot of empty parking spaces for an apartment building that will house the financially vulnerable in our community. As sad as it does seem to us, owning a vehicle is not even within their dreams, never mind a reality, at a yearly income of $23,500 to $32,000. You may be interested to know that we are making plans within our operations committee to meet with each tenant on a monthly basis to problem solve and to make sure that they are okay. We wish to encourage a positive climate within this building to create a family-type atmosphere. The best part of living here? The bright rooms with the large windows, not being stuck in a basement with no heat, and a clean new space right across from the park. We look forward to this journey of helping those that experience a housing crisis in our community. Thank you once again for giving us this opportunity. Are there any questions for me?
Any questions for the presenter, Council? Councillor Siemens, sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The original plan that we heard was a lot on Stonebridge Crossing through, with support from the Bridge Park Manor. What happened to that lot?
Reg, I will let you talk to that.
My understanding, I don't know all the details to it, but they pulled their support. And I'm not exactly aware of why they did that. I think there were some neighbors that were concerned about it, and they just...
Excuse me, if you're speaking, I'll have you to come to the podium, because it's all taped. Yeah. No, just so we can all hear you later.
Hi. So I am Charlene Kriker, and I'm the office manager at Steinbach Community Outreach. The Bridge Park Manor is very supportive of what we're trying to do. They decided in the end that they wanted to keep their land in order specifically for seniors housing, and we wanted to expand it to vulnerable people of all ages, including those coming out of care. So that was, you know, they're still quite happy with what we're doing, and we're still, you know, very supportive of what they do. We have a good relationship, but yeah, they just wanted to designate their land for seniors in the end.
That's fair.
What it came to. Yeah.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Hebert, I thought your hand, no? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify, so for all of the 24 units, they're all either one bedroom or bachelor suite, just to confirm?
That's right.
Okay.
Councillor Penner, go
I
ahead.
have a question for administration.
Yep.
According to our Well, I mean, I guess it's a question about our parking bylaw. When we say that we need 1.5 parking stalls per unit, is that, doesn't matter if the unit has 3 bedrooms or is a bachelor pad, is that kind of just
Correct,
per
that's a
unit? It
standard
doesn't-
for all
okay.
housing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, Mrs. Craker, you can feel for us because of our parking standard that we have, and because of that road is actually a little more narrow than is normally built due to, some drainage concerns and that kind of stuff, and to make it easier and to alleviate for the developer. So we're looking at the parking, and that's a big concern for us. But you've worked with these, you have a lot of experience in the 15 years you've worked with the vulnerable population you're working with. And you can I guess, solemnly affirm for us that the average person, like you said, 4 out of 14 clients, so that's 10 clients that don't have vehicles at all. So technically, these are folks that are not able to support themselves to buy a vehicle?
True.
In that form, you're saying?
True. They have a minimum amount of income, right? And so they need it for housing, and then they need it for their basic amenities that they have to have within their housing. They don't have money for the cars, vehicles, gas, transportation.
Okay, so then you'll be tailoring this to that kind of a need, I would imagine then.
Yes.
So like utilities would be most likely included?
Yes, I believe utilities are included, Charlie. Yeah.
Okay. Because I would imagine if they have difficulty with the extras, then they would have difficulty with utilities as well.
Yes, we work very closely with landlords in our community, as you can imagine. There are many times where they have barriers within their housing, and so we work very closely with landlords, and we find that it is best if utilities are included in the rent.
Well, we just, you can feel for us as our parking standards are, they need to be met, we find, but we want to make sure that we know all the information going into this, so we make the best decision. So thank you for answering those.
Thank you.
Now, do you need more? So I want to thank Irene for presenting her vision for Steinbach Community Outreach and especially for her incredible love and support and committed to the low-income citizens of Steinbach. So I think they're doing an excellent job there. I'm going to go through, first of all, good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor and City Council. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Reg Penner. I think I do know most of you in here. I'm here representing Steinbach Community Outreach Building Committee that was created to oversee the 24-unit affordable housing project that we're discussing tonight. Bob Schenkel, unfortunately, our board member and chairman of this committee, is away on vacation, and he asked me to represent the committee on his behalf. Also serving on the committee are Elroy Peters. He's the chairman of the building committee and chairman of the board. Charlene Craker, who you already met. What was her official job description? Office manager and secretary. John Craker is on the building committee, and you probably have worked with John when he was building a building for Barkman Concrete. I'm not sure if he was the representative in here. And Len Letkeman, who's here, and he's our construction coordinator. I think Len has been in the building industry for many years for Penco Construction, and probably the biggest project that he did in Steinbach was for us at the Steinbach Credit Union building, and he did an absolutely exceptional job. And when Bob said we need someone to help us, I think it didn't take me long, and I had a name at my fingertips. So we were very happy that Len joined us. So Len is also here to answer any construction-related questions that you might have that I can't answer. So before I begin, I'd also like to thank you for supporting SCU's bid for the $1.3 million grant application, which is making this much-needed affordable housing project a possibility. I'm also glad to report that we've had great public support and have already received donation pledges of over $850,000. It was quite amazing. This morning when I wrote the report, it was 800. And I got so pumped up because I was making this presentation, I figured, okay, I'll make one more call today. I made a call, then I got another $50,000. So we're doing well, and I think we're very optimistic that we'll meet our million, and I think we'll probably, in our attempt, we still end up with some debt, so I think we might try to push past and build some equity for a future project. So it's, when you've got the attention of the public, it's probably a good time to continue. With all the present inflation pressures we are facing today, the biggest challenges we're expecting will be bringing this project in on budget and, of course, interest rate risk. And I think some of those kind of jumped at us and became even bigger issues since we put our application in. I think Troy said that happened sometime in August. So the world has changed since then. So that will remain a problem for us. As proposed in our application document, this apartment project will be owned and operated by Steinbach Community Outreach. Irene did a great job of introducing SCO's programs, its clients, and the low-income housing needs of our community. As Irene mentioned, this project will only begin to address the large need of adequate low-income housing for the city, for our city. With this project, Steinbach Community Outreach's objective is to add to Steinbach's much-needed supply of affordable housing units, improve the quality of available affordable housing, and to help foster safer and independent living units. With the success of this project, it is SCO's plan to pursue additional projects in the future. Now, I don't know how widely spread that is. I think there's some of us that think it needs to be done. It's a big deal to handle the first 24, but I think if we can figure this thing out and get it working, I think, and the public stands behind us, supports us, I think there's a need to keep pushing forward. So just those type of things just tend to happen, especially in this town when things start happening. As shown in SCO's original application that was made available to council, our proposal is to build a 24-unit apartment block with a combination of bachelor and one-bedroom suites. I think it's pretty much 50-50. I think it was pretty much 50-50 on a one-bedroom and bachelors. All units will be above ground, and I think that's important because many of these people are living underground in basement suites. They will be accessible by elevator, be handicap accessible, and will comply with all efficiency Manitoba guidelines. As part of the government grant requirements, the province set some pretty strict guidelines. They include a maximum rent of $581 per month for the bachelor suites and $801 for one-bedroom suites. These rates include all taxes and utilities. I think when we first started, well, it's maybe not too bad. There's suites available at that price in town, but taxes are in. But when we start building new, when you need to start building new buildings, the cost is considerably higher, and it is difficult to hit those targets. SCO was also required to make a 20-year commitment with any increases in rent subject to rent control. So other than new buildings that have a grace period in which they can push their rent, we are required to hold the rent with the only addition allowed is the rent control set by government. In addition, there are maximum income guidelines for tenants occupying these suites of $23,500 per year for a bachelor suite and $32,000 for one-bedroom suites. As Irene already mentioned, at these income levels, these folks can only dream of owning a car, and we expect very few of our tenants will own one. These folks simply cannot afford them. To help make this 24-unit project work for the site that was available, and pretty quick notice, I think we started working on this project in August. I think that's when the call went out. I'm not sure when was it handed over, or when were we given the go-ahead on this thing? It's probably October maybe. What date was that? I don't remember, but it was December. So the time frame was relatively short. And then we lost our first site, and you heard we talked about that today, and we had to sort of pick up what we could find. And so we have purchased a lot. So Steinbach Community Outreach is requesting this variance to the parking requirement because it is tighter probably than we wanted it to be. As you can see, our plan shows 30 parking stalls, which is 1.25 stalls per unit instead of this 1.65 stalls as required by city code. Even if it were even remotely possible for every one of our clients to own a car, and we don't think it is, we would still have a surplus of 6 stalls for guests. We did some checking with Eden East and compared Steinbach Community Outreach Project to Penfeld Court and Wilson Court East. The Penfeld apartments have 24 suites with 1 and 2 bedroom units, and Wilson apartments have 24 units consisting of a mixture of 1 bedroom and bachelor suites, which is probably a little more similar to our proposal because they're smaller in size and the number of people in the units is less. Eden East said that the maximum number of tenants stalls presently being used at Penfeld are 15 and only 7 at Wilson Court. The higher number of cars at Penfeld could be explained by the fact that only 50% of their clients receive subsidy. Now, I don't know that. I got from Charlene, and so I think they're aware of what kind of housing is available in town, and with the balance having higher incomes not requiring subsidy. Our project would line up more closely with Wilson Court, in which all tenants have lower incomes and receive government subsidies to make ends meet. Wilson Court, which is more similar to us, only have 7 cars for 24 units. And even Penfeld, which is 50-50, is running at 15 out of 24 presently. So far, 14 people have expressed, as Irene already said, only 14 people have expressed an interest in our building, in our proposed building, with only 4 of them having a car. So the ratio is even less so far. Our variance requests include 30 stalls for 24 units. That's 1.25 per unit, which we believe will be more than adequate. Low-income housing parking is currently not considered in our current city bylaws, which is why we're here asking for a variance. So maybe you could do that in the future because we will need more of these. So, as you can see from our financial projections, in spite of the $1.3 million grant and the $1 million of donations that we're hoping to raise, and with only a 34% loan-to-cost ratio compared to a normal 65% ratio on a normal building, cash flows are still very tight. There's not a lot of wiggle room here. I think we got about a $25,000 surplus. So a lot of things don't have to go wrong, and we're in a tight spot. While we could reduce the number of units to meet the code requirements, it's doable on that piece, our budget simply cannot afford the potential loss of any of the grant proceeds, the increased unit costs, and the reduction in rental revenue. That'll put us in a negative spot. The cost of construction will not reduce in direct proportion to the units being deleted. Due to the special circumstance of low-income apartments not needing normal parking requirements, Steinbach Community Outreach is asking for you to support our request for a reduction in parking spaces for this much-needed low-income housing project. In general, low-income housing is a special circumstance. These people need special community support, and the reality is these folks simply can't afford cars, and therefore the level of parking required by current building code is just not necessary for this type of a project. In summary, I believe we all agree that the city needs safer and more adequate low-income housing, and this project is a move in the right direction. In this special circumstance, in which you simply don't need the amount of parking spots required by the present code, we're asking for you to approve this variance request. So thank you very much for hearing us today on fairly quick notice. I think we got in at a very good time, and we would thank you for considering our request. Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Penner, I have one question for you. You brought up Wilson Court. Okay, there's 24 units at Wilson Court. Those are also 1-bedroom and bachelor suites.
Right, yeah.
Is it the similar ratio is what you guys?
You know, I don't know the ratio. Do you know the ratio? Is it 50-50?
But even if it's not, it is actually quite similar to what
Right,
you're building.
right.
Right? And so you're saying out of 24 stalls they're using, or
They're
24
only using
units,
7.
they're using 7 stalls?
Right.
And in Penfeld, that's a different style of housing, but similar, 1 to 2 bedrooms, and they're using 15
Right.
for the 24 units.
Exactly.
But there are some that are subsidized.
I think 50%. 50% are subsidized in the Penfeld project, yeah.
Okay, but they're still, even so, they're still well below their usage at this point.
Yep.
And these are already comparables that are operating in our city and have operated for some time.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions of council? Okay, thank you. That was just for clarification.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? And if you're
No, it seems like you've done a good job of making sure there's no questions. You've answered.
Well, I think Irene covered most of it.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
At this time, seeing no questions from council, I'd like to ask if there are anyone here with questions, comments, or objections to this file.
Good evening.
Just ask you to state your name and address.
Sure, no problem. My name is Nancy Peters. My address is 59 Whitby Crescent. And I am sorry if I appear nervous because I am. I wasn't planning to be here tonight. I thought someone else was coming. So it was very last minute for me, and so I'm unprepared. But I just wanted to say that I'm not here in opposition of anything. I really respect and support, and yeah. But I just had some questions actually, and wanted to know also whether this was the appropriate space or time to be asking for just consideration for some of the things in general for the property that I guess goes along the back of all of our residences on the side that I live on Whitby. And so I don't know if this is, like I said, the correct space for that. And if not, then maybe somebody can just direct me to what would be the right avenue to take or whatever. So just some concerns as far as like the neighborhood goes with a number of buildings being built in the property that exactly is behind ours. My house is not far from the end of the bay. And so this building, I think, is going to be quite close to my backyard, maybe a bit east of it, if I'm right. Okay. But again, just in general with a number of the large buildings going up, and the fact that we all have bi-levels, like it's just hard for the privacy of our backyards, just the way that the buildings are lining up, the way that a lot of the buildings are lining up. And then just with, I guess, the space being so open behind our homes, I guess what a lot of us are wondering is, I don't know who would be responsible for this or who should be asked, but maybe a consideration of a fence. Just thinking of things like, I mean, we've already had theft there in the past. I know I have in my home personally more than once. And then my neighbor right next to me also was a victim of some theft as well. So stuff like that, just with the properties being so open, and now you know, there's always just been a field in our backyards, and now we have a lot of buildings. So it's just an area of concern. And another thing that that we have been noticing more with more of the buildings is people walking through the properties to access the park area that's in the back. And so they come like from the bay or different areas, visiting people or whatever they're doing, and then they cross over the properties to head into the park area. So I feel like a fence at some, like I think just over the ditch would be a good idea, or I don't know, wherever would be best to build it. And the other thing is, just because of how our properties again are lining up with the properties that are across that, the green space or the ditch or whatever you call it, obviously the apartments are needing to have like garbage and recyclable dumpsters. And so for us, when we're on our backyards, depending where we're at, then it's kind of like right in view. And those dumpsters are typically really full. I just went by one of them yesterday and it was overflowing again. And in the summertime, this past year, just with one apartment there, I did notice the one that was there was frequently all around on the ground behind it. And so that was another thing that I was just thinking of with that as well. And then I think more in general also, again, and I'm not sure if this is the proper space for this, but just like as a homeowner there, and I'm one of the first ones that lived on Whitby, and I've been there the whole time, like with a lot of the development there now, there's a lot of times in the evening and later at night where there's so much speeding on the road, which would be Woodhaven. And then also vehicles that are, and I know this doesn't have anything to do with your project or anything like that, but just vehicles using that parking lot with the park, and just a lot of, like a lot of activity there late at night. And then now I went last night, or yesterday, sorry, during the day and took a photo. There is beer cans all over. And this happens, they sit there late at night and stuff like that. So just, I don't know, I guess just a few things that I was just considering with this project again, and just an opportunity to come and just ask some questions and just speak about a few of the concerns in general. Just with more activity back in this area and more construction now and coming forward, not just for ourselves, I guess, on Whitby, just for like the neighborhood in general, I guess now and going forward as well, just some concerns that I would have. That's kind of all that I...
Okay, I'll try and answer your questions as
Yeah,
well.
for sure.
As far as the speeding, the littering, the theft, that is something that will have to be taken up with the RCMP.
Okay,
You can
for
do that
sure.
as well.
Yes, and I have, yeah.
I'll ask Councillor Swagstor to bring that up at the next
Sure.
RCMP meeting with the staff sergeant. So that will be, like, your points will be duly noted and will be brought up with the RCMP.
Mm-hmm.
But the best time to do that is when it's exactly happening.
Yes, and I
So
have. Yeah, you're
Next time that
right.
happens, then do call in.
Sure.
Because our members are more than happy to clean up.
Yeah.
So we will, coming, I believe, this spring, late spring, we will have a dedicated officer
Okay,
to traffic in our city only.
okay.
So then those kinds of things can be addressed a lot
Right.
easier, because we'll actually have the police force for it. The zoning along Woodhaven has always been RHD. We just made it, we rezoned it, I think, a year ago to RMD, and then we've had all the uptake on the buildings that are going there too. So
Yeah.
the zoning actually is less dense now than it
Right.
could have been.
Yeah, I knew that.
So in that way, I guess you dodged a bullet on that one.
Yeah,
As far as the dumpsters, like I know for this particular one, the dumpster's going to be at the front of the property.
Okay.
You should really never see the dumpster.
okay,
There will be a fence around the dumpster, from what I can understand.
okay.
And so, yeah, you should never,
Yeah, even
ever
that would
see
be
this
helpful.
dumpster.
Yeah,
So if that's not, like, normally that's what happens in multifamily.
right.
The dumpster's in one spot. Usually there is a fence around it. Maybe that hasn't happened yet, but.
Yeah, maybe
it does
that's a
often
plan going
happen.
forward, yeah.
I'll direct the next question to administration. Mr. Wargentine, has there been any, is there any room for fences, or has that been a item of the development agreements with the developers at this point, up to this point, on the Woodhaven properties?
Generally, because the zoning in that area was already in place at time of subdivision, multifamily developments can proceed with construction. While the city does have buffering components within its zoning bylaw, typically buffering requirements that could involve either a berm, trees, fences, they typically apply only to incompatible uses, meaning if there would be a commercial or industrial use right next to a residential area, that's where the zoning bylaw would require it. And only if there is an actual shared lot line where the more intensive use abuts directly to a residential property, because there is a public reserve, which is the being used for the drainage channel, that being 40 feet wide, and the fact that they are residential uses, albeit one multifamily and one single family, buffering and fencing requirements are not necessary and not part of the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so
Would not be required as part of this development.
okay, so to clarify, because they are both residential, a buffering is not necessary, but there is a 40-foot buffer, so to speak, right there, a natural buffer.
There is.
Because of the development reserve, okay. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it
Maybe not
does.
exactly the answers you're looking for.
No, that's
but-
okay.
But I know on the speeding, the littering, like there, that is an RCMP issue.
Yeah.
And that we can help with, Councillor Schweitzer will bring it forward
For sure.
and bring it before our staff sergeant. And if you call in when it's happening, then they will send
Right.
send a car out.
Okay, really good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with comments, questions, or objections to this file? Okay, I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone here with comments, questions, or objection to this file? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penn, or Councillor Siemens,
Motion to approve.
second by Councillor Penn. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, thank you, Mrs. Craker and Mr. Penner, for your passion for the work. I know I've listened to you, Irene, for the last 15 years, so I understand where you come from and why SCO is where it is today. 1 year ago, the city received a grant for $1.3 million from the province and said this is to address affordable housing in your community. I wasn't sure how and where this would go, and because I didn't see the picture, but I'm sure happy that Steinbach Community Outreach did provide the city with an opportunity to do just that and move towards affordable housing for low-income individuals living in Steinbach. Like many communities, Steinbach is one that has a short supply of affordable housing, and we heard that through the reports today and through reading the material that was called The Bridge. But these 24 units of 12 bachelor suites and 12 one-bedroom suites will offer that affordable housing for low-income individuals. Each of these suites will have clients that make under $23,500 a year or $32,000 a year, depending which suite. And the rent of $583 or $801 includes all utilities and taxes. That's phenomenal. What makes this all the more attractive for me and for Steinbach is that there's a 20-year commitment guided by the MRHC guidelines, but it's also going to be managed by Steinbach Community Outreach, which makes it very attractive. It's not the city of Steinbach managing a project or private individuals. I think the passion that Steinbach Community Outreach has for this comes through in all the different areas that they've worked. SCO will also be working not on their own, but with other community agencies that will refer tenants to this building. But the question before council here is to reduce the parking stall requirement from 40 to 30 stalls. I'm usually one of the first people to hold to that policy of 1.65 stalls per unit, and often I've asked to have it raised. A comparison was made to Wilson Apartments, and I also did that homework, and only about half the tenants there have the vehicles as well. Many low-income tenants will won't have a vehicle, and if they do have one, they will be very fortunate. I also agree with all the conditions suggested by administration that the site can only be developed for bachelor and one-bedroom suites, that the owners enter into an affordable housing agreement with the city, and that MRHC grant funding be approved by the City of Steinbach. There is one other point to be made here, is that when we received this grant a year ago, there was a one-year time constraint on it. So this project does have a time constraint on the grant, that it needs to be approved, I believe, before the end of March. I might have my dates wrong, but for all those reasons, Mr. Mayor, I believe that we need to approve this variance.
Thank you. Councillor Penner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you for the presentation. I don't think there's a more qualified organization to run this new facility, so that's very exciting. It's great, yeah, to be able to work with you on this. Regarding the parking variance, the challenge with our parking bylaw for multifamily is that it requires 1.5 parking spots plus 10% for visitors per unit, whether that is a bachelor pad or a 3-bedroom apartment. And it does not factor in that the lower someone's annual income is, the less likely they are to be able to afford a vehicle, let alone 1.5 vehicles. When it comes to the variance before us, the prospective tenants for bachelor apartments will have an annual income of less than $23,500, and tenants eligible for a 1-bedroom apartment will have an annual income of less than $32,000, in keeping with the MHRC guidelines. So based on the fact that the units in this project are smaller than average, and based on the fact that they are required to keep within the MHRC's affordable housing guidelines for a minimum of 20 years, I'm comfortable supporting the motion for the parking variance as moved by Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anything further of Council? Councillor Swykstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support the motion as well. I'm just going to make one comment here, and then just one other thing I want to mention. One of the issues that comes up is, what about the precedent that we're setting? Because obviously this is a significant reduction in the parking requirement. And all I'll say is that this is a unique situation. This is an affordable housing development managed by Steinbach Community Outreach. I'm actually quite comfortable with setting the precedent that we reduce the parking requirement for an affordable housing project managed by Steinbach Community Outreach. I think that's a unique enough circumstance. I'm not concerned about the precedent. This is not saying that for other multifamily regular buildings that we're going to dramatically lower the parking requirement. I would like just to ask the mover and seconder if we're okay with a friendly amendment stating that this is subject to a development agreement with the city, since that's a standard component for these here. I think that's absolutely.
You're okay with that? Councillor Su?
Okay, that's all I've got.
Okay. Anything further of Council? Anything in closing?
No, sir.
Well, Council, this is a tough one. For me, this was a difficult one because of the parking, like a reduction of 25%. But I really do, I want to thank Reg, I want to thank Irene for your presentation. It was a very good presentation. I agree with Councillor Penner. I don't think this could go to a better organization in our community. I know you're going to run this. You're going to run this well, run this caring, and you're going to run this with a heart. And your first reaction will always be love, because we've seen that in our community with the people you've already helped, and the success stories that come from your organization. And we do thank you. I personally, I'm confident that you have proved to me that you do not need as many parking stalls. When you show the comparisons that are already operating on our city, Wilson Court and Penfield, and you showed that the correlation to assisted living or assisted housing and the amount of vehicles that they have and the spaces they use, I think it's compelling. And so I will also support this motion. I think this is something our community needs desperately. This is a good start. And there will be more to come, as Reg said. And we'll have, I'm sure we'll have decisions to make on those as well. But for now, this is what we've got in front of us, and this is what we'll decide on. I call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, council, we'll move to number 8, reports of recommendation of city manager. This is referring to the 2021 Capital Works project, the tender award. Starts on page 27. Mr. Workington, could you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the city recently issued a tender call for its 2022 Capital Works program. The tender closed on February 17th, 2022, with 3 bids received. Based on the proposal that includes 3 separate projects, being Brookdale Crescent reconstruction, Lowen Boulevard wastewater sewer installation, and the construction of several sidewalks within the city of Steinbach. Recommendation from our project engineer is that the tender award, or the contract, be awarded to Maple Leaf Construction Ltd., being the low bidder, for the amount of $2,083,853 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Worthing. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Schweikster?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move approval.
Second by Councilor Hebert. Go ahead, Councilor Schweikster.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have, as per usual, we have an aggressive capital works plan. Our basic infrastructure remains important, and this motion is giving approval to awarding our 2022 Capital Works construction program to Maple Leaf Construction Limited. They were the low bid, coming in at just above $2 million. There are 3 major projects within this, as the city manager noted: the reconstruction of Brookdale Crescent, the Lowen Boulevard wastewater sewer, and then the sidewalks along Brant Street, Mackenzie, and the Wyndham Estates. And I think it's great that we're able to do these major projects within the budget, and it makes sense for us to award this tender.
Thank you, Councilor. Anything further?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to see that the sidewalk on Wyndham is going in. That's part of the project, and all around it looks like a good project. Thank you.
Anything further, Council? Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maple Leaf Construction has done several previous jobs here in Steinbach, and they've always done a good job, so it's nice to see that they were one of the tenders for us. We've had a good working relationship with them, and administration reports that they do quality work. So it's nice to see them come in at a low bid, and we see that they're $300,000 under number 2 and $700,000 under number 3. And again, I'd like to compliment the administration for bundling all 3 of these jobs into one tender, and I'm sure that lowered the price for us. So not only is Maple Leaf the lowest, but they're a reputable firm, and look forward to their quality work here on these projects.
Thank you. Anything further of Council? Anything in closing? No. Council, call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, Council, we got number 9A, administration. That is accounts payable at the back of the book. Looking for a motion to approve. Councilor Penner, second by Councilor Siemens. Call for, anything further? Nope. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We got the financial statements ending December 2021 at the back of the book. Looking for a motion to approve. Councilor Hebert, second by Councilor Penner. Any comments?
No comments.
Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. 9C, we've got bylaw 2188, street renaming. This is the 3rd reading. This is starts on page 37. Mr. Workney, would you please introduce this file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this bylaw 2188 does propose 3rd reading for a road renaming bylaw for the street currently known as Clear Spring Drive, which is located just to the west of Clear Spring Mall in Steinbach to Thresher Road. Recommendation for 3rd reading is recommended.
Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Penner?
Motion to approve.
Second by Councilor Hebert. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's fairly straightforward, just to rename roads within the development. Only problem is that I'm going to have to explain to my daughter, who just lost her 2 bottom teeth, that it's going to be difficult to say Thresher Road, so.
Just for a time.
Just for a time.
Just for a time. Anything further?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. We see that Thresher Drive is going to be the new name and is consistent with the other streets in that subdivision, so
Okay. Thank you.
I'm in favor.
Anything further of council? Anything closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We had 9D, the Municipal Board appointment delegations. This is bylaw 2179, on page 41. Mr. Workney, could you please introduce his file?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the recent application for rezoning of a particular development area in Steinbach under bylaw 2179 was the subject of several objections from the neighborhood. As a result, the Municipal Board has called a public hearing for both March 16th and March 17th, 2022. There is a resolution drafted on page 43, which would authorize both myself and City Planner Lacey Gaudette to represent the City of Steinbach at this public hearing.
Council, how would you like to proceed? Councilor Penner,
To approve?
second by Councilor Siemens. Any comments?
We'll have good representation.
Anything further? Anything of council? Anything in closing? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. This brings us to council question period. Council, I have a statement to make, and then a little bit of an update, and then I have a question as well. Council, we've been hearing in the news since late last week about the invasion of Russia, of Ukraine by Russia. And I called our former mayor, Chris Gertson, who is affiliated with Zaporozhye, which was, I guess, named our sister city in Ukraine. And they have a center there that helps out the people and gives out food. And he said in this case, what they've done now is they've basically vacated the building, and they've all gone into the basement. They've moved all the food there, all the rations, everything's there. They're kind of operating like a bomb shelter at this point, and the entire community, for the most part, is coming there, and they're giving out food, and they're doing their best to keep everyone's spirits up and keep everyone safe. The challenge with Zaporozhye, it's basically right in the way to the capital city, and so if the Russians are going to get to the capital city, they will be going through Zaporozhye, and that's got a lot of people very, of course, anxious and scared, and so they're really calling on us for support, for our prayers, our support, our thoughts. And so, Council, I just want to ask if you would join me by resolution to just show our support to the Ukraine people, and also, hope for a speedy and peaceful resolution to their crisis at this time. Councillor Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly concur with your statement, and I'd like to propose the following resolution. Be it resolved that the City of Steinbach express its support for the people of Ukraine, and that Steinbach City Council hopes for a speedy and peaceful resolution to the current crisis.
We have a seconder for that? Councillor Penner? Go ahead, Councillor Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that we've all been following the news quite closely. This invasion of Ukraine by the Russian President Vladimir Putin has been quite something to see. It is tragic. It is deeply unfortunate. It's probably the most significant conflict in Europe in many, many decades, since 1945. And I know that in Steinbach, in our region, we have some pretty close connections with Ukraine. There are a lot of people of Ukrainian heritage in our area, and we, of course, have a sister city in Ukraine, and it is absolutely appropriate that we express our our support for the people of Ukraine, and I think it's this is something that we can all agree on here in Canada. There's obviously, we have our differences on other issues and partisan and all that. This is a time where in Canada we can all agree. We stand for freedom, we stand for democracy, we stand against an invasion launched by a dictator. And so I think this is something that we can all come together on and agree that we support the people of Ukraine at this time.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Penner?
You know, we have some friends who literally got back from Ukraine days before the invasion. They adopted children from Ukraine, and they got out just in time. But it does lead me to reflect on, you know, all the children in the orphanages there, because that's a significant population, is orphan children, and just even parents and mothers. Now mothers going at it alone because their husbands have to fight. So my heart is really with those moms and children, how difficult that must be for them at this time. So I just really encourage people to keep praying for the situation. You also hear so many positive stories coming out of these horrible situations as well, how people are stepping up to the plate and helping. So as horrible as the invasion is, and we obviously want it to stop, it is encouraging to see the human spirit and how the free world is coming to show their support for Ukraine. I haven't quite seen anything like that in my lifetime, where there seems to be so much support, you know, in a situation like this. Although we haven't seen one as severe, it just does seem like the world is recognizing this is not how we want to live. So I support the resolution.
Anything further, Councillor Hebert?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's very close to home. We all, basically the founding members of Steinbach Foundation came out of the Ukraine. We all have distant relatives there. Talking to my son the other day, his wife's grandparents have family there, and they're communicating with them, and it is tragic. It is very tragic, and so we definitely have them in our prayers.
Thank you. Anything further of council? Anything in closing? Well, council, thank you very much for joining with this. I think this is very important because, as Councillor Schweitzer alluded to, many of the settlers or pioneers that came to Steinbach came through the Ukraine, and many of them have family. We've got contacts there. I know our former mayor, he came from the area of Zaporozhye, his family did. And he talked about exactly what you brought up, conscription, you know, how the 18 to 60-year-old men are being asked and forced to fight now. And it's just, war is a horrible thing, and we're starting to see it's closer now because we've got family ties there, and we're starting to see that in families, and we see pictures that are sent to us, and you know, people in their basements using them as shelters. And it's a horrible thing, and this has to end. And we need to continue to pray and support in any which way we can. And that's why I thank you, Council, for seeing this and for joining together and doing this as a team. Thank you. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, Council, we've got 11A, correspondence from the Steinbach Legion, Branch 190. They have a request to us. Council, we've all read that. How would you like to proceed? Councillor Schweitzer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the letter from the Legion, they're basically asking for the opportunity to make a donation to the event center, so that way there can be a commemoration of the contributions of our veterans, and they obviously want to be able to make use of the space. I'm personally, I'm very favorable to their request. I think that we want to keep the Legion within Steinbach. I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, that because the Southeast Event Center group is going to have the day-to-day management, that we have the letter forwarded to them with our endorsement, that we agree that if at all possible, that their request be accommodated.
Council, how do you feel? Consensus for that? to send this letter, to forward the letter to the said group, the Southeast Event Center Group,
Please do.
and with our endorsement, so that they look at this, and then they can be in contact with the Legion from there on in. Okay? Sure. Okay, so, Mr. Workentine, then that's what we'll do as a council. We'll forward this letter to the said group with our endorsement to help, because we do feel the Legion plays a significant role in our community, and I've been part of several of the Remembrance Day services, and they are done well, and it's true in the letter when they say that many want to attend ours. It's true. They phone from all over the province to come and get a seat at the memorial services that we do.
It might be at the event center.
Pardon?
In the future, it might be at the event center.
Well, I could see it needing that much space because we're completely outgrowing all the other venues that we've been using. So, okay, thank you very much. There's no other business. Looking for motion to adjourn. Councillor Ebert, second by Councillor Siemens. Call for the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next council meeting is Tuesday, March 15th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m.